Chapter 9. Getting animals used to the presence of humans is at the heart of the art and science of zookeeping. The key aim is to diminish an animal's flight distance, which is the minimum distance at which an animal wants to keep a perceived enemy. A flamingo in the wild won't mind if you stay more than 300 yards away. Cross that limit and it becomes tense. Get even closer and you trigger a flight reaction from which the bird will not cease until the 300-yard limit is set again, or until heart and lungs fail. Different animals have different flight distances, and they gauge them in different ways. Cats look, deer listen, bears smell. Giraffes will allow you to come within 30 yards of them if you are in a motor car, but will run if you are 150 yards away on foot. Fiddler crabs scurry away when you are 10 yards away. Howler monkeys stir in their branches when you're at 20. African buffaloes react at 75. Our tools for diminishing flight distance are the knowledge we have of an animal, the food and shelter we provide, the protection we afford. When it works, the result is an emotionally stable, stress-free animal that not only stays put but is healthy, lives a very long time, eats without fuss, behaves and socializes in natural ways, and, the best sign, reproduces. I won't say that our zoo compared to the zoos of San Diego or Toronto or Berlin or Singapore, but you can't keep a good zookeeper down. Father was a natural. He made up for a lack of formal training with an intuitive gift and a keen eye. He had a knack for looking at an animal and guessing what was on his mind. He was attentive to his charges, and they, in return, multiplied, some to excess. Chapter 10. Yet there will always be animals that seek to escape from zoos. Animals that are kept in unsuitable enclosures are the most obvious example. Every animal has particular habits, needs that must be met. If its enclosure is too sunny or too wet or too empty, if its perch is too high or too exposed, if the ground is too sandy, if there are too few branches to make a nest, if the food trough is too low, if there is not enough mud to wallow in, and so many other ifs, then the animal will not be at peace. It is not so much a question of constructing an imitation of conditions in the wild as of getting to the essence of these conditions. Everything in an enclosure must be just right, in other words, within the limits of the animal's capacity to adapt. A plague upon bad zoos with bad enclosures. They bring all zoos into disrepute. Wild animals that are captured when they are fully mature are another example of escape-prone animals. Often they are too set in their ways to reconstruct their subjective worlds and adapt to a new environment. But even animals that were bred in zoos and have never known the wild, that are perfectly adapted to their enclosures and feel no tensions in the presence of humans, will have moments of excitement that push them to seek to escape. All living things contain a measure of madness that moves them in strange, sometimes inexplicable ways. This madness can be saving. It is part and parcel of the ability to adapt. Without it, no species would survive. Whatever the reason for wanting to escape, sane or insane, zoo detractors should realize that animals don't escape to somewhere, but from something. Sometimes within their territory has frightened them, the intrusion of an enemy, the assault of a dominant animal, a startling noise, and set off a flight reaction. The animal flees, or tries to. I was surprised to read at the Toronto Zoo, a very fine zoo I might add, that leopards can jump 18 feet straight up. Our leopard enclosure in Pondicherry has a wall 16 feet high at the back, I surmise that Rosie and Copycat never jumped out because of constitutional weakness, but simply because they had no reason to. Animals that escape go from the known into the unknown, as if there is one thing an animal hates above all else. It is the unknown. Escaping animals usually hide in the very first place they find that gives them a sense of security. And they are dangerous only to those who happen to get between them and their reckoned safe spot. Chapter 11. Consider the case of the female black leopard that escaped from the Zurich Zoo in the winter of 1933. She was new to the zoo and seemed to get along with the male leopard, but various paw injuries hinted at matrimonial strife. Before any decision could be taken about what to do, she squeezed through a break in the roof bars of her cage and vanished into the night. The discovery that a wild carnivore was free in their midst created an uproar among the citizens of Zurich. Traps were set and hunting dogs were set loose. They only rid the canton of its few half-wild dogs. Not a trace of the leopard was found for 10 weeks. Finally, a casual laborer came upon it under a barn 25 miles away and shot it. Remains of roe deer were found nearby. That a big black tropical cat managed to survive for more than 2 months in a Swiss winter without being seen by anyone, let alone attacking anyone, speaks plainly to the fact that escaped zoo animals are not dangerous, absconding animals, but simply wild creatures seeking to fit in. And this case is just one among many. If you took the city of Tokyo and turned it upside down and shook it, you would be amazed at the animals that would fall out. It would pour more than cats and dogs. I tell you, boa constrictors, Komodo dragons, crocodiles, piranhas, ostriches, wolves, lynx, wallabies, manatees, porcupines, orangutans, wild boar. That's the sort of rainfall you could expect on your umbrella. And they expected to find, in the middle of a Mexican tropical jungle, imagine, it's laughable, simply laughable. What were they thinking? Chapter 12. At times, he gets agitated. It's nothing I say very little. It's his own story that does it. Memory is an ocean, and he bobs on its surface. I worry that he'll want to stop. But he wants to tell me his story. He goes on. After all these years, Richard Parker still preys on his mind. He's a sweet man. Every time I visit, he prepares a South Indian vegetarian feast. I told him I like spicy food. I don't know why I said such a stupid thing. It's a complete lie. I add dollop of yogurt after dollop of yogurt. Nothing doing. Every time it's the same. My taste buds shrivel up and die. My skin goes beet red, my eyes well up with tears, my head feels like a house on fire, and my digestive tract starts to twist and groan in agony like a boa constrictor that has swallowed a lawnmower. Chapter 13. So you see, if you fall into a lion's pit, the reason the lion will tear you to pieces is not because it's hungry. Be assured, zoo animals are amply fed. Or because it's bloodthirsty. But because you've invaded its territory. As an aside, that is why a circus trainer must always enter the lion ring first, and in full sight of the lions. In doing so, he establishes that the ring is his territory, not theirs, a notion that he reinforces by shouting, by stomping about, by snapping his whip. The lions are impressed. Their disadvantage weighs heavily on them. Notice how they come in. Mighty predators though they are, kings of beasts, they crawl in with their tails low and they keep to the edge of the ring, which is always round so that they have nowhere to hide. They are in the presence of a strongly dominant male, a super alpha male, and they must submit to his dominance rituals. So they open their jaws wide, they sit up, they jump through paper-covered hoops, they crawl through tubes, they walk backwards, they roll over. He's a queer one, they think dimly. Never seen a top lion like him. But he runs a good pride. The larder's always full and, let's be honest, mates, his antics keep us busy. Napping all the time does get a bit boring. At least we're not riding bicycles like the brown bears or catching flying plates like the chimps. Only the trainer better make sure he always maintains Super Alpha. He will pay dearly if he unwittingly slips to Beta. Much hostile and aggressive behavior among animals is the expression of social insecurity. The animal in front of you must know where it stands, whether above you or below you. Social rank is central to how it leads its life. Rank determines who it can associate with and how, where and when it can eat, and where it can rest, where it can drink, and so on. Until it knows its rank for certain, the animal lives a life of unbearable anarchy. It remains nervous, jumpy, dangerous. Luckily for a circus trainer, decisions about social rank among higher animals are not always based on brute force. Heidegger, 1950, says, "When two creatures meet, the one that is able to intimidate its opponent is recognized as socially superior, so that a social decision does not always depend on a fight. An encounter, in some circumstances, may be enough." Words of a wise animal man. Mr. Heidegger was for many years a zoo director, first of the Basel Zoo, and then of the Zurich Zoo. He was a man well versed in the ways of animals. It's a question of brain over brawn. The nature of the circus trainer's ascendancy is psychological. Foreign surroundings, trainer's erect posture, calm demeanor, steady gaze, fearless step forward, strange roar. For example, the snapping of a whip or the blowing of a whistle. These are so many factors that will fill the animal's mind with doubt and fear and make it clear to it where it stands, the very thing it wants to know. Satisfied, number two will back down and number one can turn to the audience and shout, "Let the show go on." And now, ladies and gentlemen, through hoops of real fire. Chapter 14. It's interesting to note that the lion, that is, the most amenable to the circus trainer's tricks, is the one with the lowest social standing in the pride, the omega animal. It has the most to gain from a close relationship with the superior alpha trainer. It is not only a matter of extra treats. A close relationship will also mean protection from the other members of the pride. It is this compliant animal, to the public no different from the others in size and apparent ferocity, that will be the star of the show, while the trainer leaves the beta and gamma lions, more cantankerous subordinates, sitting on their colorful barrels on the edge of the ring. The same is true of other circus animals, and is also seen in zoos. Socially inferior animals are the ones that make the most strenuous, resourceful efforts to get to know their keepers. They prove to be the ones most faithful to them, most in need of their company, least likely to challenge him or be difficult. The phenomena has been observed with big cats, bison, deer, sheep, monkeys, and many other animals. It is a fact commonly known in the trade. Chapter 15. His house is a temple. In the entrance hall hangs a framed picture of Ganesha, he of the elephant head. He sits facing out, rosy-colored, pot-bellied, crowned, and smiling. 3 hands holding various objects, the 4th held palm out in blessing and in greeting. He is the Lord overcomer of obstacles, the God of good luck, the God of wisdom, the patron of learning. Simpatico in the highest. He brings a smile to my lips. At his feet is an attentive rat, his vehicle, because when Lord Ganesha travels, he travels atop a rat. On the wall opposite the picture is a plain wooden cross. In the living room, on a table next to the sofa, there was a small framed picture of the Virgin Mary of Guadalupe, flowers tumbling from her open mantle. Next to it is a framed photo of the black-robed Ka, holiest sanctum of Islam, surrounded by a 10,000-fold swirl of the faithful. On the television set is a brass statue of Shiva as Nataraja, the cosmic lord of the dance, who controls the motions of the universe and the flow of time. He dances on the demon of ignorance, his forearms held out in choreographic gesture, one foot on the demon's back, the other lifted in the air. When Nataraja brings his foot down, they say time will stop. There is a shrine in the kitchen. It is set in a cupboard whose door he has replaced with a fretwork arc. The arch partly hides the yellow light bulb that in the evenings lights up the shrine. Two pictures rest behind a small altar. To the side, Ganesha again, and in the center, in a larger frame, smiling and blue-skinned. Krishna playing the flute. Both have smears of red and yellow powder on the glass over their foreheads. In a copper dish on the altar are 3 silver murtis, representations. He identifies them for me with a pointed finger. Lakshmi, Sakati, the mother goddess, in the form of Parvati, and Krishna, this time as a playful baby crawling on all fours. In between the goddess is a stone Shiva Yoni, Linga, which looks like half an avocado with a phallic stump rising from its center, a Hindu symbol representing the male and female energies of the universe. To one side of the dish is a small conch shell set on a pedestal. To the other, a small silver handbell. Grains of rice lie about, as well as a flower just beginning to wilt. Many of these items are anointed with dabs of yellow and red. On the shelf below are various articles of devotion. A beaker full of water, a copper spoon, a lamp with a wick coiled in oil, sticks of incense, and small bowls full of red powder, yellow powder, grains of rice, and lumps of sugar. There is another Virgin Mary in the dining room. Upstairs in his office, there is a brass Ganesha sitting cross-legged next to the computer, a wooden Christ on the cross from Brazil on the wall, and a green prayer rug in a corner. The Christ is expressive. He suffers. The prayer rug lies in its own clear space. Next to it, on a low book stand, is a book covered by a cloth. At the center of the cloth is a single Arabic word, intricately woven, 4 letters, an aleph, 2 lams, and a ha, the word God in Arabic. The book on the bedside table is a Bible. Chapter 16. We are all born like Catholics, aren't we? In limbo, without religion, until some figure introduces us to God. After that meeting, the matter ends for most of us. If there is a change, it is usually for the lesser rather than the greater. Many people seem to lose God along life's way. That is not the case. The figure in question for me was an older sister of mother's, of a more traditional mind, who brought me to a temple when I was a small baby. Auntie Rohini was delighted to meet her newborn nephew, and she thought she would include Mother Goddess in the delight. It will be his symbolic first outing, she said. It's a samskara, symbolic indeed. We were in Madurai. I was the fresh veteran of a 7-hour train journey. No matter, off we went to this Hindu rite of passage, mother carrying me, auntie propelling me. I have no conscious memory of the first go-around in the temple, but some smell of incense, some play of light and shadow, some flame, some burst of color. Something of the sultriness and mystery of the place must have stayed with me. A germ of religious exaltation, no bigger than a mustard seed, was sown in me and left to germinate. It has never stopped growing since that day. I am a Hindu because of sculptured cones of red kumkum powder and baskets of yellow turmeric nuggets, because of garlands of flower and pieces of broken coconut, because of the clanging of bells to announce one's arrival to God, because of the whine of the reedy nadaswaram and the beating of drums, because of the patter of feet against the stone floors down dark corridors pierced by shafts of sunlight, because of the fragrance of incense, because of the flames of arati lamps circling in the darkness, because of bhajans being sweetly sung, because of elephants standing around to bless, because of colorful murals telling colorful stories, because of foreheads carrying, variously signified, the same words, faith. I became loyal to these impressions even before I knew what they meant, or what they were for. It is my heart that commands me so. I feel at home in a Hindu temple. I am aware of presence, not personal, the way we usually feel presence, but something larger. My heart still skips a beat when I catch sight of the murti, of God residing in the inner sanctum of a temple. Truly I am in a sacred cosmic womb, a place where everything is born, and it is my sweet luck to behold its living core. My hands naturally come together in reverent worship. I hunger for prasad, that sugary offering to God that comes back to us as a sanctified treat. My palms need to feel the heat of a hallowed flame whose blessing I bring to my eyes and my forehead. But religion is more than rite and ritual. There is what the rite and ritual stand for. Here too I am a Hindu. The universe makes sense to me through Hindu eyes. There is Brahman, the world soul, the sustaining frame upon which is woven, harp and weft, the clothing of being, with all its decorative elements of space and time. There is Brahman Nirguna, without qualities, which lies beyond understanding, beyond description, beyond approach. With our poor words, we sew a suit for it. One, truth, unity, absolute, ultimate, reality, ground of being, and try to make it fit. But Brahman Nirguna is always bursting at the seams. We are left speechless. But there's also Brahman Saguna, with qualities, where the suit fits. So now we call it Shiva, Krishna, Sakti, Ganesha. We approach it with some understanding. We can discern certain attributes, loving, merciful, frightening, and we feel the gentle pull of relationship. Brahman Saguna is Brahman made manifest to our limited senses. Brahman expressed not only in gods, but in humans, animals, trees, in a handful of earth, for everything that has a trace of the divine in it. The truth of life is that Brahman is no different than Atman, the spiritual force within us, what you might call the soul. The individual soul touches upon the world soul like a well reaches for the water table. That which sustains the universe beyond thought and language, and that which is at the core of us and struggles for expression, is the same thing. The finite with the infinite, and the infinite with the finite. If you ask me how Brahman and Atman relate precisely, I would say in the same way the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit relate, mysteriously. But one thing is clear. Atman seeks to realize Brahman, to be united with the Absolute, and it travels in this life on a pilgrimage where it is born and dies, and is born again and dies again, and again, and again, until it manages to shed the sheaths that imprison it here below. The paths to liberation are numerous, but the bank along the way is always the same, the bank of karma, where the liberation account of each of us is credited or debited, depending on our actions. This, in a holy nutshell, is Hinduism, and I've been a Hindu all my life. With its notions in mind, I see my place in the universe. But we should not cling. A plague upon fundamentalists and literalists. I'm reminded of a story of Lord Krishna when he was a cowherd. Every night, he invites the milkmaids to dance with him in the forest. They come out and they dance. The night is dark. The fire in their midst roars and crackles. The beat of the music gets ever faster. The girls dance and dance and dance in their sweet lord, who has made himself so abundant as to be in the arms of each and every girl. But the moment the girls become possessive, the moment each one imagines that Krishna is her partner alone, he vanishes. So it is that we should not be jealous with God. I know a woman here in Toronto who is very dear to my heart. She was my foster mother. I call her Anteji, and she likes that. She is Quebecois. Though she has lived in Toronto for over 30 years, her French-speaking mind still slips on occasion on the understanding of English sounds. And so, when she first heard of Hare Krishna, she didn't hear right. She heard, hairless Christians? And that is what they were to her for many years. When I corrected her, I told her that in fact she was not so wrong, that Hindus, in their capacity for love, are indeed hairless Christians, just as Muslims, in the way they see God in everything, are bearded Hindus, and Christians, in their devotion to God, are hat-wearing Muslims.